So on August 9th, when I came to the city publicly, we then had a meeting on August 14th, which you all know about, and the decision was ratified on August 18th by City Council. I'm just giving you the timeline here.
Excuse me.
So,
excuse me, your timeline, I believe you stated that you only heard the morning of the first meeting. That's what you stated, don't keep interrupting me. I didn't interrupt you, don't interrupt me. Okay? So, if you only heard about it the morning of the general issues committee meeting, how is it that you've now said you've heard it 4 days previous?
sure, happy to answer that. I've been very consistent. There's tons of public statements which have me writing down exactly when I said I knew what I said. I just heard about it just beforehand, right? August the 1st is when I first heard about it. The 5th it was confirmed, and the 9th it was in a public report that we all had. I've said that consistently throughout. Or if I got the information from somebody else, happy to talk to you about it after. I stand by what I said on the internet. I've been very clear about this.
Okay, so then in between the 5th and the 9th, why was there no public consultation? Like you're doing here today, which you put together in 2 days. Why would that not apply to this? Or you just didn't want to do it and like you sneak it through by going to an MTO? Just ask.
Once the public report was on the agenda on the 9th, which was 2 business days after the 5th, the 5th was a Saturday, it was 2 business days till the 9th. Once that report was out to the public, I started communicating about it and trying to plan time to do a consultation. But what I was mindful of, very mindful of, was, and I'm sorry this is being communicated this way, it's like, this is not a plan I had. I didn't plan to have this happen here. Council had to make a decision. Council had to decide on the 14th, and then council had to decide on the 18th. City Council,
who in this room is for the tiny homes encampment? Raise your hand. Who's against? Who's against? Yeah. Who's against?
Yeah.
I'm going to answer her question now.
Why was there a referendum award?
I'm going to repeat your question to make sure everybody heard it. Can you say it again if you don't mind?
Why did you not wait on public consultation to take it to council?
The reason is because everybody involved in this project said we needed the time to make sure this happened before the winter. If it's something that's before the winter of this year, you asked me to there, go ahead.
Hi. I think what the point is of a lot of us is that we don't feel heard. So
Don't feel
we've heard
safe.
a lot of things online about once these encampments are there, then suddenly the tents will disappear and security will improve. Right now, the city isn't following protocols, and North End is getting, like, there's meth heads, which we are compassionate people on meth, but it's scary for some of our people. There are people who have had many items stolen. We all know that.
Run through the roof.
We are part of the poorest population of Hamilton. I think we've got a lot of people who are struggling under weekly, monthly, and yes, it's amazing that many of us own homes, but that doesn't mean we're suddenly privileged people who have thousands, millions of dollars to spend.
Yeah.
So when something is stolen, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
My neighbor, my elderly neighbor, had all his tools stolen. He had his barbecue stolen. We found it up at the specific tent encampment up at James and Strawn, and he called the police. They told him if he went and got his items back, he would be arrested. So we have not been protected, and I have one of your own staff members going online and making fun of our plight.
Yeah.
That is I'll finish up by saying, basically, my whole statement means that we have trouble trusting you because the promises have already been broken to clean up. The police have ignored us, the government has ignored us, the city has ignored us, and your own staff is making fun of us online. So it's very difficult to take what you're saying as you're protecting us as well as our homeless population, our homeless neighbors, which many of us are in groups on Facebook, online, have taken care of our homeless population ourselves. Okay? So we don't feel like you're listening to us at all.
And you're getting paid by our tax dollars.
I hear you.
We're the ones that should be.
I'm going to answer just some of the things you talked to there. Because one of the biggest things that people have commented on is what's going on right now in campus on Star Street versus the pilot itself. So there's two things that are happening. One, this pilot encampment protocol got set up on the 14th. Before then, there wasn't one. The previous council had an encampment protocol, which was starting to try and manage encampments. At a certain point in the last term of council, they got rid of it.
Thank God.
So there was no encampment protocol and no way to manage these sites. So one of the things we've been trying to do since we started this term of council is get a new encampment protocol in place so we can start to help to manage this process. Because this isn't a situation we randomly found ourselves in Ward 2 in Hamilton. This is a situation that has been going across the country for 2 generations because the federal provincial government decided.
Guys, I know you're all upset. I came here to listen to what he has to say. Let's at least hear about the one you need to share.
Up on the screen, you see a section of the encampment protocol. I want to read it out to you so you understand what it means. When the Hats pilot is set up, all the other encampments on Strong, from Bay all the way to Ferguson, will no longer be there.
Who will enforce it?
Yeah. Is that your guarantee?
And the entire area from Bay to Strong, the entire area from Bay to Strong will be considered one large area. And nothing will be permitted to be there within 15 years. And that's what the mayor said yesterday. He said, we could have done that yesterday. Just answer that question. I'll go to that question.
If there's anything, I'll be honest with you. Number one, everybody deserves a quality of life. So that's the first thing that should be recognized. Number two, I'm telling you, man, how did you just pick up Strong with all the land banking, land that is around Hamilton, that could have been done down where they wanted to build the Ticat Stadium, right? But it's contaminated soil. Right? But guess what? Those people are living down there on contaminated soil. So there's something done about that. How you doing, right? Forget it.
Sure, I'll answer that question.
I would give you the money, honest to Christ. You get your family across the street where those townhouses are. All them people work hard for their money, whether they're renting, buying, selling, how you doing, whatever they're doing, right? You bring your family there so we don't have to bombard your office with phone calls. If and when there's a scenario, we can just go knock on your door. How you doing? Forget about it, right?
I've lived within 100 years of campus and have for a number of years, so I'm telling you no. This problem is happening one
I
time.
know you forget it.
So I'm going to take the question and go on to the next part of the presentation.
Wait a second. You lived
Go back
within
down.
100 years of independence, but yet you ignored court count for how frickin' long? I have plenty of friends in this crowd. The gist of it all, we don't need a whole fancy presentation. The gist of it all is nobody was consulted. And how do we possibly trust you when you purposely ignored court count for months?
Sorry, I'm going to answer this question. This is your first question. Sorry. I'm going to answer
By
the
the
question.
way,
I didn't choose this protocol for my campaign for one. I'm going to answer your question. What I said to everybody is, we've been trying to get a protocol in place to help manage the crisis. Without a protocol in place, moving people involuntarily is against the city's
Let him speak. Yeah.
Yep, by all means, yep.
Okay, I have a comment.
I'll repeat the question.
Okay, I have a comment and a question to follow. Yesterday evening, the mayor called Leuna, who I'm here representing, out for not being compassionate, given our concerns. Community builders in this city since the 1980s. We are here today with our community where the mayor is nowhere to be found. So I would say that in the city.
Yeah, where is she?
This location is setting Hats up to fail. It does not even meet half or a third of the criteria enlisted to ensure it is a success. So opposition is not NIMBYism. We want to see it succeed, but the city is setting this up to fail.
Yes.
I think your question is about whether or not this meets the criteria set out by Hats. And the answer is obviously doesn't meet all the criteria. We all know that. It's
not even close.
A couple of other things that happened during this process is we said to the city, we need you to use land use planning criteria to determine this. And so what they did was, when they decided on these sites, and I'll answer another question. City staff.
Who is city staff?
Who is the city staff? Put them in front of
I'm going
us.
to answer your question. I'm going to answer the question that was asked. So, I'm going to answer, it's Victoria, right? Yeah, so and if anyone didn't hear Victoria's question, she asked why the mayor wasn't here. And then she also asked,
No one else is here either.
you could repeat your question, I would appreciate it. What was your question?
Yeah. How will the final decision and the deciding factor, given that this does not even meet half of the criteria set up by Hats?
Exactly, so city staff use different criteria. They narrowed it down. The question is they use land use planning in combination with Hats criteria to make the decision.
Decide what was convenient for it.
Based on Hats criteria, it is not to be in a neighborhood, in a residential neighborhood. This is 110 by semantics, okay, 100 meters away from housing, from a neighborhood, and schools and rec centers. All criteria, no running water, no hydro, and it's not even the desired size that Hats has indicated they want for this to succeed. Yet, for some reason, this site is the end all, and nobody has anything that they can say because the city has decided that this is it. It doesn't meet criteria. Why did this site even get put on the table, given that it does not meet criteria?
It meets some of the criteria from Hats, it meets some of the criteria from land use planning.
Why, because it's paved?
Sites available before winter time. They decided on this site being preferable to the Barber Tiffany site because of contamination, and Cathedral Park because it's going through contamination. So a couple of things that are happening in water. Hey, I don't have to answer the question. You can just yell at me.
Provide the meeting minutes.
I'm going to go to one more slide before I take more questions to make sure I answer the part of what's happening here. So what city staff's report says there would be, and I want to make sure everyone in the room is on the same page. There's a 2-year pilot, up to 25 tiny homes. The number hasn't been decided on yet, so it's up to. So it's going to make sure that it fits the neighborhood. When that happens, all the other encampments that are on Strong will be relocated.
How will you move them?
Hats is going to talk about exactly what the site's going to look like, so people understand and have questions answered about that. Security and safety, that's coming up, so they're going to answer those questions. So you can understand what it will look like in general. The residents will be selected. People have asked this question from the city's by name list. If you don't know what the by name list is, it's literally a list of folks by name. And so there'll be applications, Hats, the city, other city partners will be vetting those applications. So that'll be happening.